Jesus would be down with it. Try not to put it on the music. I don't know if they completely do that all the way, but but at least they know where I'm coming from. You know, God said, no obscenity out the mouth. Everybody knows what obscenity out the mouth is. So you say, how does God guide me? Through His Word. I'm still at the milk phase of being a Christian, just listening to the Word and trying to abide by what He says. Faith comes through hearing. I've just heard that recently, and that's one of my resolutions for this year, actually. Faith comes through hearing. It's truth. I just heard that recently. My grandma told me it, because sometimes I go through some times where I'm just not, I'm down and out. My faith is low, real low, but it's still there somewhere, but it's real low. But recently I heard faith comes through hearing, and I realized you need it every day. So every day I've been getting up now and listening to music, reading the Bible, asking my grandma scriptures. Like I said, sometimes you're going through those times you're just, where's your faith at? So that's part of this new year, praying, reading, because that's really important. So in terms of prayer, got to get on it more. But I do want it, so I'm trying. I think it's important to have this attitude because eternity is a long time.
Isn't that great? I love what he said. It is so, to me, it's so genuine. Not a religious kind of thing, but he's getting it, of the life that God's calling him to as a young man and making a difference by him following the path that Jesus sets out before him. This journey that God's calling us each to, I believe it's an epic journey. It's a journey that lasts for eternity. It's a journey that we're each called to individually. Now, the promise that Abraham had in verse 2, this is what God says. If you do this, he says, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. Okay? I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. In those short 2 verses, he used the word bless or blessing how many times? 5 times. You think it's important to God? That he's telling Abram here, man, if you follow me, if you finish the course I set before you, I will not only bless you, but I will bless those who bless you. I will bless your children and your children's children. This is important for us to understand. Now, bless means to be fruitful and multiply. If you go back to Genesis 1:22, we see the word blessing being used in the context of creation. Genesis 1:22, it says, God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the water in the seas and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the 5th day. You see, what blessing really is giving us a picture of, it's not only life within us, but it gives life to others. It multiplies life. That is the blessing, friends, of being a disciple, is when we truly set course and follow the path that God sets for us, life comes. And when life comes, it is given to others. I thought about this over the week after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's. We went to the Front Range, our family, to be with my family in Denver and Jane's family in Colorado Springs. Now, Jane comes from a way different family than mine. Not only do they look different, they're white like you guys, but they are a wonderful family because there is an incredible spiritual heritage in her family. Her grandfather, on her dad's side, was a music instructor at Concordia College, a Lutheran college in Nebraska. And he even has hymns that he wrote in the Lutheran hymnal today. And so Jane's father, deeply committed to Christ. Her mom was raised in Tobias, Nebraska, a little tiny German Lutheran town, raised up in the church. Her mom has a deep love for Christ. They raised up their 4 daughters in the ways of the Lord. They not only took them to church, but they lived it. They lived a life of being godly people. And so Jane has a niece and a nephew from 2 of her sisters that got into some stuff over the last couple of years and got into drugs, got into legal problems, school problems, the whole 10 yards, 9 yards, whatever you say. For the Raiders, it's 9 yards. For the Broncos, it's 10. So both of the moms of these 2 kids, they did some research, and they found this Christian ministry called Teen Challenge. And so Jordan was put in Teen Challenge in Pennsylvania, where they lived, and Becca was sent to Kansas to a women's Teen Challenge. In the process of the last 6 months, through the ministry of Teen Challenge, both of them came confronted with their issues, came confronted with the call to truly be a disciple and follow Christ wholeheartedly. Both of them have repented wholeheartedly away from their lifestyle and have given their lives fully to Christ. And so when we were in Colorado Springs and the family was together and we had a kind of a late Christmas together, we kind of allowed them to share. And both of them, their testimonies of what they have learned and the things that they were really into and how God has changed their life now, it was it was a very special evening for all of us. And the thing I thought about was this blessing, that not only is my father-in-law Herb and my mother-in-law Marcy, it was what they passed down, but it's what their parents passed down. And so the blessing is coming not only to their children, but to their children's children. And I just marveled at what I saw and what I experienced. And, all Jane's sisters are following the Lord and are raising up their kids in the Lord. And I just hope that God has grace on my family and the kids that we have with Gracie, Wade, and Joey, that God would pass on the same stuff to them. Because I believe that blessing is a promise that God fulfills when we choose to follow him. You see, in verse 4 here, it says, "So Abram left as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him." Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, all their servants, so forth, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. He finished the journey. And the one thing I see here is that Abram packed up everything and left. Have you ever moved where you leave half of your stuff somewhere and you take half of your stuff with you, thinking that if this doesn't work out, I'll just go back? Did you ever do that? I remember growing up in college, taking a car full of stuff, but I always knew I could go back to Mom and Dad's house. This is the heart of a disciple. Same as Abram, you're all in. You cash in all your chips, and you say, God, I'm following you now 100%. That's the call that God is inviting all of us to partake in. That's the sacred journey he's calling us to. And when we take that journey, the blessings that are out there for us are only waiting. Ephesians 3:16, I love this prayer of Paul's. for the church in Ephesus. He says, I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the saints to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of the fullness of God. That's a great promise, isn't it? This is the life. This is the journey. This is the destination of when we choose to follow Christ 100%, is the mysteries of the kingdom unfold to us, and the fullness of the Spirit comes within us, and we begin to understand, not only intellectually, but in our heart, the incredible love of Christ that we just can't describe and we can't contain in any explanation, because it's so much beyond that. This is the significance of our call. This is the journey. This is our destination, to know Jesus and the love that he has that surpasses all understanding. So I'm going to have the worship team come forward. This is the spiritual journey we're called to. And when we look at a journey, in particular, we're using the analogy of a ship. That a ship's voyage starts in the harbor, doesn't it? That in the harbor is where a ship will dock, and all of the supplies and all of the goods are loaded on the ship. Repairs are made to the ship, and then people come and they board the ship, and then they set course. And so the first thing that I want to establish for us at Canyon View is we want to establish a harbor. And in the harbor is where we begin the journey. It's where we kind of board the ship. Now, many of you in this room, you've been on this ship called Canyon View Vineyard Church for a long time. And you're at a different place in your journey. And we're going to be talking more about what course you're supposed to set forth on in the subsequent weeks from today. But there are many others here that in the last year or the last 6 months, you're new to the Canyon View Vineyard Church. And so many of us in this room, we really don't understand exactly what Canyon View Vineyard really is and what it means and what it's about. And so in your bulletin, you'll see that we have a new class that is going to be held on Sunday, January 25th at 12:30, called Gateway. And in that class, we're going to share the history of Canyon View. We're going to share the current vision of Canyon View, where we're going. And we're going to also talk about the values of the vineyard and how that impacts who we are and what we do. And so that's the first step that we want you to take. If you haven't been through what used to be called the 101 class, where the vineyard is introduced to you and the church is introduced to you, we want you to come to Gateway. Okay? Now, it's important. I really believe this, that Gateway is really important for, if you haven't been through it, to go through it, because I want you to hear my heart on this. We want you in a church. We not only want you in a church, but we want you engaged in the church, because that's part of the journey process, isn't it? That through the church, we learn more about Jesus, and we're able to worship him, and we're able to be engaged in fellowship so we can be encouraged to grow. Okay? So if Canyon View, and you hear about the vision and the history of the church, and find out more about who we are and how we kind of, the method of the madness, and it doesn't click with you, this really isn't a church you were looking for. I really want you in a church that fits you, that sort of scratches you where you itch. You know what I mean? And so I think Gateway is very important for people so that they understand where we're going and that they can be a part of it and be excited about it. And if it isn't where you want to go as a believer or a follower of Christ, we will help you to find that church where you can be blessed and you can be a blessing to them. All right? Can we agree to that? The second thing that we want you to do, the next step of setting course from the harbor, is we're going to have an Alpha course that's starting on February 4th. Alpha is a 10-week discipleship course. And the reason I am so excited about really promoting and get behind people who go through Gateway is the next thing we want you to do is now we want you to take Alpha. Regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, because I have been through Alpha, I don't know how many times, maybe 20 times with all the Alphas that we had in Canyon City. And I learn something new every time I go through it. And through Alpha, you learn the foundations of the Christian faith and life, and you learn from biblical perspective the course that we're all supposed to go on. I believe Alpha really helps to establish the kingdom of God and the kingdom of God lifestyle that he calls us all to. And so if you haven't been through Alpha, even if you are a seasoned veteran that you've been sailing for a long time, we want you to go through Alpha so that we are assured that we're all on the same page in a biblical, theological way. All right? So that's the first course that we're calling us to. Take the Gateway class and then go through Alpha. And for those of you, I've done that. I've been through 101. I've gone through Alpha. I want you to hold till next week. That's a trailer. Okay? So next week when you come, you're going to be excited about the direction we're calling the rest of us to go on. The main thing is, for all of us, are we willing to say yes to God? As Abraham said, okay, God, I don't know where Canaan is, and I don't know what's going to be there when we get there, but I'm packing up everything and I'm going. I'm all in, God, because I want your blessing, and I want to be obedient to you. It's time to put the rudder in the water, and it's time to let God direct the direction of our ships. Do we want something more than the status quo? Do we desire all that God's calling us to? I believe if you say yes to those questions, 2009 is going to be the most exciting year of your life. So let's stand, and as we worship, let's worship in response to this call that God has for all of us of this epic spiritual journey.